With 6 races to go after this autumn break in the 2024 F1 season, there's still plenty of positions up for grabs for the drivers to battle over as the season comes to a close. In this video, we're going to focus in on what positions are still up for grabs in the top 10 so that we know what to focus on in these last 6 races. Starting with the battle for 10th position, we've got Hulkenberg currently in 10th on 24 points, and then we've got Tsunoda and Lance Stroll both on 22 points, fighting for that position. And if we're being completely honest with ourselves here, Lance Stroll should be taking this by an absolute landslide. His teammate Fernando Alonso is absolutely miles in front of him. If it was on raw car performance only, then obviously he would be taking this by absolutely miles. And I think, to be fair to Lance Stroll, he had a decent purple patch in the middle of the season where he did manage to get a bit more performance out of the car. He managed to beat Fernando Alonso on a couple of race weekends. But on a whole, over the whole year, he has just not been at it at all. And then if we look at Tsunoda and Hulkenberg on the complete other end of the spectrum, they've been outperforming their teammates by miles. We've got Hulkenberg in that Haas car. He's on 24 points, whereas his teammate Magnussen is on 6. And Tsunoda in that RB car, 22 points over Daniel Ricciardo's 12 points. And Daniel Ricciardo's 12 points isn't going anywhere because he's just been dropped for the remainder of the season. So it will be interesting to see how he stacks up against Liam Lawson, but Liam Lawson isn't going to be fighting for 10th. Looking in at how they've all scored the points over the season, you can see on this graph that Stroll and Tsunoda have been more consistently picking up points over the season, whereas Hulkenberg had just a great period at the British Grand Prix and moving into Austria, where he just accumulated basically all of the points that he has. And I feel like the characteristics of the tracks that we've got upcoming for these last 6 races definitely do favour the Haas car over the RB and the Aston Martin. Aston Martin definitely struggle in the straight line speed, and RB picked up most of their points this season at the Miami Grand Prix, more of a sort of slow speed track. And with Hulkenberg performing really admirably at Austria and Great Britain, obviously power hungry tracks, high speed corners, we've got a few of those sort of races coming up. We've got Circuit of the Americas this weekend, sort of high speed straights. We've got some medium speed corners in the first sector. I guess they might be let down in the last sector. We've also got Mexico coming up, again, quite a high speed track. Brazil, definitely a power track. So I feel like Haas definitely could gain some good momentum coming up here. The other thing that we've got to take into account is that we've still got 3 sprint races left on the calendar, and Hulkenberg has been unreal in qualifying this season. So with that qualifying performance, you'd imagine that on these sprint race weekends, where the race doesn't last as long, if he can qualify well as he has this season, then he'll be able to bump himself up and get some points in those sprint races, whereas Stroll and Tsunoda might not expect to, with only 8 point scorers in those races. But obviously, sprint races only account for a small number of points versus the actual race, and it'll be interesting to see who does come out on top in this fight. It's definitely one to look out for. As for how I see it going, as I said, I feel like the Haas is going to be really strong to end the season. I think Hulkenberg's going to take it home, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Up next, we've got the battle for 5th. We've got Carlos Sainz on 190 points. We've got Lewis Hamilton on 174 points. We've got George Russell on 155 points and Sergio Perez on 144. Now, whether or not you can say that Russell and Perez are in this fight for 6th, I'm not too sure. I think Perez really needs these Red Bull upgrades to be absolutely crazy for him to be involved. Whereas Russell, he just sometimes pulls a result out of the bag. Like, for example, at the Austrian Grand Prix, he picked up that win. He sometimes is just in there when things go wrong for other drivers. He could, with a couple wins, get himself into this fight. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I can't really see it happening, but I thought I'd just include him because he's not that far off of Carlos Sainz. So what I really think that this one is going to come down to is Carlos Sainz versus Lewis Hamilton. Can the Ferrari continue to be faster than the Mercedes for these last 6 races? I'm not too sure. Hamilton needs Mercedes to regain their mid-season performance. When he won those 2 races, it looked like he was going to be making a charge up the championship. It hasn't really happened. I think Mercedes have sort of fallen back down to 4th in the pecking order. But if we're to be totally honest with ourselves, Hamilton is really good at a few of these tracks that we've got upcoming. In particular, Circuit of the Americas, he's outperformed his car for the last couple of years there. The Brazilian Grand Prix, he obviously had an unreal performance in 2021 and is generally pretty good round there, absolutely loves the place. And he is just a 7-time world champion, so he could pull anything out the bag. He could make up this deficit to Carlos Sainz, but I really do think that Ferrari have got the better package for these last 6 races. Carlos Sainz doesn't really have much to prove now that he does have a drive somewhere else with Williams next year, but I think that Carlos Sainz is just going to stay in front of Lewis Hamilton. Again, let me know what you guys think below, but I think that it'll probably end up staying roughly similar in this battle. Up next, we've got the battle for third. We've got Charles Leclerc on 245 points and Oscar Piastri on 237 points. And look, let me just throw out there straight away that I am so impressed with Charles Leclerc's season, and the fact that he's even in a fight with that McLaren car going into this last 6 races, it's so impressive from him. Obviously, we can see that Piastri put a massive dent in this fight since the summer break. He has been performing much better in this second half of the season, but yeah, you just have to respect the fact that Leclerc is just in such a slower car than Piastri. I think I'd be lying if I said anything other than I thought Piastri was going to be taking the 3rd place. I think McLaren have been looking stronger and stronger as the season's gone on. I think that Piastri realistically needs to be performing at the front of the grid to take points off Verstappen for the Norris-Verstappen title fight, which I'll get onto in a second. So I think he's got quite a lot of pressure on him, but he seems to work very well under the pressure. He should be fighting at the front, so he shouldn't really be considering whether or not he's in this battle for 3rd. He should just go and get it. But if Leclerc can, grab that Ferrari by the scruff of the neck, keep outperforming it, keep taking it forward, then honestly, if he gets 3rd in this championship, that's one of the sort of performances of the season, I think. So yeah, to conclude, I think that Piastri will take the 3rd place. And finally, the title battle, the battle for first, Verstappen versus Norris. Verstappen on 331 points, Norris on 279. And do I really think that this battle is still on? I don't think so. I've included it in the video because we do need to talk about it. Do I think that Norris has any chance of winning this championship? I think without Verstappen DNFing once, it's gonna be incredibly hard. Norris does have sprint races at least to come up, so there are more points on the table than just 6 normal race weekends. So it's possible, but I just feel like Verstappen, he's been in this situation before where he's been in a title fight. He's not going to exactly crumble under the pressure, or at least you wouldn't think so. He's got a massive buffer. Like, 52 points is still a massive amount. The gap between Verstappen and Norris has only changed by 1 point since Miami. That's absolutely crazy that Norris in that rocket ship McLaren hasn't caught up more in that period of time. You had the Hungarian Grand Prix where he missed out on 7 points. That's not down to him really, that's down to the team. But ultimately, McLaren have made a few mistakes this season that have caused Norris to not be closer to Verstappen at this stage. I think it should ultimately be closer than it is, but I just can't see anything other than Verstappen winning this championship. And especially with Red Bull bringing some upgrades to these last 6 races, they should even be more competitive with McLaren. It's going to take some sort of miracle to go anywhere other than Verstappen winning this title. And with all that, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to check out this one right here where I talk about all of the constructors battles that are still ongoing this season. And make sure to get subscribed for more Formula 1 content.